All right. So now we heard a ton about Neos 9. We mentioned it earlier. Robert mentioned it now. But all of it is somewhat abstract. So Toby will be telling us what Neos 9 and all of the changes it brings will actually mean for you, us, them, all of us.
Please welcome on stage.
Ooh,
Tobias
from the
Gruber.
side, sneaky.
Oh, here.
Oh, there's stairs.
Hello. Good morning also from me, and thank you for coming to Karlsruhe this year. Many of you again, and also for those of you who are joining us here for the first time, welcome. You've already read about Neos 9. You've heard about it right now in the keynote. Robert already gave you a sneak peek of the capabilities that the new event source content repository brings for Neos. And so we thought about how can we take you on this journey with us, on this new time for Neos that Neos 9 ushers in. So we thought about what does Neos 9 mean for content, for digital content that it's made for. So we're saying, with Neos 9, digital content evolved. And the question is, what is the significance of Neos 9? What can we do now that was not possible before? And most of you here are probably looking at Neos 9 from a developer's perspective and thinking about the API, how to use it, what changes in your code. But when we ask ourselves, who are we coding for and what are we trying to create, then we're thinking about the people who are going to use our Neos projects, that are going to use it to edit their content. And then that content is being read, consumed, seen by end customers who are actually using the content that is being created. So there is this chain, and we have to think about how can we create a tool that is useful to those people browsing our websites, going to our online shops, and actually, paying the money to keep our businesses alive. And as Robert mentioned, Neos 9 enables new possibilities for your content. And content is more than just text or images. With Neos 9, we're expanding the definition of content. With the event source content repository, you can store so much more than just text or images. So think about your digital content and how you want to evolve that in the next years to deliver value to your customers. When we set out 9 years ago with this technical idea of the event source content repository, we didn't know it would take so long to actually deliver the product. But what we have seen and what Robert talked about is that the world around us has changed a lot. So when we create Neos 9, we think about what is possible and what does it mean, what we're doing, and you are part of that community. So what does digital content mean in the next years coming? Digital content means connections. We as a community are connected, the core team, the contributors, the users, the developers, the editors, everything is connected. And we want the same thing to be true for our content. We want our content to be available on a website, through an API in an app, through many other channels, and the source where that content is stored should easily support all of these use cases. And as you have seen, the machine-to-machine communication is becoming even more important. This MCP that Robert showed, so allowing other machines to interact with your content is becoming more and more important. So when we think about connections and you think about Neos and connected content within Neos, you have nodes, you have content that, for example, you create this beautiful website for your products. And a big shout out to Network Team for this awesome website. So you have your products, that is a kind of content. And what you typically do is your products belong to a category. Okay, that's easy. I'll create a product, I'll tag it with a category, and then we as developers are asked with a task to create a category overview page. Which products are actually tagged with this category? And I have been told that in the past, many people would go to Elasticsearch to answer that question. So we have to bring in a lot of complexity on the technical side to find out which products are actually part of this category. With Neos 9, we're making these connections much easier. We are introducing bidirectional relations. So instead of your products being tagged with a category, now, the way it's meant to be, your categories also know the products. So it becomes much easier to create these connections in your content. But digital content doesn't only mean connections. When we think about our content, we also mean control over our content. Which content is published, when, by whom, in a reviewed manner, and with quality. So in Neos 9, the new workspace module that Sebastian Helzler developed is becoming the standard. And you've hopefully already seen this beautiful UI that brings so much more information than before. So managing your content, having control over the workspaces, the changes that are being produced, that need to be reviewed, that need to be published, to be available to your end users, to be useful. Neos 9 with the new improved workspaces module is making a huge leap forward there. So we've talked about connections, we've talked about control. Digital content also means utility. The content we create should be useful and usable. So when I, as an editor, use Neos to create the content, I want it to actually be there and available to my end users. In my language, in my currency, in my demographic, whatever dimensions I've used in Neos to give my content out. So we've created a little demo, what Neos 8 sometimes, what can happen in Neos 8. So this is a scenario where we have two users editing the website, and we're using dimensions. And we're creating a translation with the copy function. We're publishing that. Now we're editing content. And now it's lunch break. I'm going off, having a lunch break, and my colleague is making changes as well. And I'm coming back from my lunch break, and I want to pick up where I left off. Oh, the node has moved? Okay. Where's my content gone? And when I refresh the page, there's no trace of it. Oh my gosh, the node is gone, the content is vanished. We call that orphaned nodes, and we had that be a possibility in Neos 8. And that's one of the features we wanted to get rid of, because that's not utility, that's annoying, that's confusing, that's frustrating. That's not what you expect as an editor. The most important thing when your users use the system is that the content that they create is there and stays there. That doesn't disappear. So when the team set out to create Neos 9 and then this event source content repository, from the start they were making sure that what they're creating, that what they're developing, removes these type of errors from the beginning. So with the improved dimensions that we get in Neos 9, Neos levels up its game in reliability and scalability. I've been asking this question to the team many times, and they have assured me it's not possible anymore. So if you find use cases where content is still disappearing, please let us know so we can fix those. It's not supposed to happen. I've talked about connections, I've talked about control, I've talked about utility. Digital content, as I've mentioned, also means APIs. Our content must be available in many different areas. So when they set out to create this new event source content repository that is at the core of Neos 9, they were also thinking about why only create that for Neos? This is an incredibly advanced package and a piece of technology. We can make that available to the broader community. So the Neos event source content repository is published as a standalone PHP package. So it can be used in many different contexts. Because open source, it's so important to us, we want to make this available to the community so that others can profit from the work we've spent. And the new content repository, you can actually have multiple instances within your Neos. And we're already discussing in the team that, as I said at the beginning, it's not just the text and the nodes and the content of your website that lives in a content repository. Pretty soon, also assets will live in a content repository. Because I'm sure many of you have had the use case where you said, okay, our content knows dimensions and is available in different languages, but the properties of my images, like the captions or copyright information and so on, they should also have dimensions, and it's, you know, it should be normal. So, for example, assets living in their own content repository, that is something that we're looking at. So the content repository can not only be used in Neos, but as a standalone package in all your applications that work with content. And digital content means one more thing for me. As we've said, when we create the content, when I as an editor create the content, I do not want it to go away. But of course, I'm rewriting my content, I'm creating new ideas, I'm publishing stuff, and then I'm thinking, oh wait, this thing I created last week, that was better. How do I get that back? So my content evolves and it changes. But change doesn't mean that I want to forget what happened in the past. That might also be important. So with the new event source content repository, every change is stored. So no matter how my content changes and evolves over time, the event store saves these changes. So as soon as you start using Neos 9, every change that your editors make to your content is saved and can be accessed. So when we ask the question, what changed in my content? By whom, when, and in which context? Neos 9 comes with an audit trail built in. But it's not just an audit trail. The event store enables new kinds of integrations as well, because syncing content to Neos and from Neos is becoming much easier, because the content, the way the content is changed now has an upcounting ID, so I know the last point of sync I had. And Neos, at its core, has never been the system that claimed all your data belong to us. No, Neos has always considered itself a team player. So integrating with other systems has always been at the core, and exchanging data and making sure that you can present your content in the best way possible. So this is Neos 9. This is digital content evolved. And I'm really excited about Neos 9 and the new use cases it enables. Are you also excited? So this is not just a promise for the future. Neos 9 is here, it's released, you can use it today. How many of you have actually, or are actually using Neos 9 in production today? Give me a show of hands. Who of you are not core team members? Okay, one, I think I saw a hand. So the big question is, okay, since April we have Neos 9 released. We're standing here on this stage telling you it's so great and you should use it. But how do I actually do that? And for that, I have the great honor of asking Sebastian up on stage. And Sebastian will show us how we actually get a Neos 9 project from a Neos 8 project to start with.
Let's try that, I would say, right? So, what do we actually need to do to upgrade to Neos 9? And it is, in the rough sense, it's pretty similar to every update you have done in the past. At the core of your project, you have the project code. This is all the stuff you check into Git. You all use Git, hopefully, right? Everybody? Yes. Okay. I won't ask the question who doesn't, but please use it. We also don't have just code in our projects, but we also use a lot of different packages, because that is the value of our community. Neos is at its core, but we have lots and lots of community packages you all created, and this is a really, really big part of the value of Neos. So that means we also need to update the packages somehow. And last but not least, content is data, so we also have to update the data in our system. So these are the three parts we now have to do. And when we prepared this talk, we were like, well, should we just try that out and upgrade that? So let's do that. So head to the Neos documentation and follow the documentation for that. So we'll go to the upgrade guide. And then there is some migration overview, which is really good, which gives you a really overview what we need to do. So let's walk that through together. At the start, it is really, really important that you are at Neos 8.3, right? So you have to go first to the latest Neos version, so because this is what we tested the upgrade against. Hopefully you made a backup, right? And you have a local copy of your project with your data, with the production data, so you can safely upgrade and try out things. What do you need to do first when you upgrade a Neos project? Anybody? Dependencies. Yeah, we need to update composer.json. So let's do that together. So actually, when we thought first updating the demo site, and then it was like a little bit boring, so we thought, let's take a real website, let's take the docs website. And so what we're gonna do is now, together, is the upgrade of the docs.neos.io site package in the next maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So this is the composer.json of the docs website before the upgrade, containing Neos 8.3. And what we need to do now is to upgrade dependencies to 9.0. We also update all the packages to the latest released versions. And we also need to add 2 new packages. what are these two packages? The first one, the content graph doctrine DBAL adapter, it's a pretty hard to spell name as well, is the connection to the MySQL or MariaDB database for storing the nodes. We are currently also working on a Postgres version, which will offer even better performance, but that is still in the works. And the second package is the content repository legacy node migration. This is actually the package you need if you want to migrate your content from NEOS 8.3 to 9. As soon as this is done, this package can be removed. So let's update that and then run Composer update. Let's see, Composer has to think a bit and starts installing packages, downloading packages, and it's quite impressive what is in an average NEOS project. I always, when this runs, I'm always thinking about this big stack of things we are based on, and I'm so glad that the open source ecosystem is so vibrant, because every of these individual packages lives on GitHub and has at least one person or a few persons who push that forward. So that is really, I'm really glad to be part of the bigger PHP ecosystem. Okay, so we have packages updated, right? Which is really good. Let's focus on the next part. We need to take care of the project code as well, right? How do you usually update your project code? Anybody? Core migrate, exactly. So core migrations have been in the NEOS project since, I think, the first version. I think we did the rename from Phoenix to NEOS back then with that, and from typo3.neos to NEOS. So they have been in place for a long time. But this year, we have completely switched to a new migration system based on Rector. Who knows Rector, by the way? A few, okay. So Rector is a system which actually understands your code. It parses your PHP code, and it knows the syntax tree. It knows all the types in your code if you use type-safe code, which we all do in NEOS pretty well. And this means we don't have to just do string replacements like we did before, but we actually understand your code when we update. And this enables us to bring the upgrading experience to a completely new level. And Rector is an open source project, and we have created a package called NEOS Rector, which contains our special rules. So what you need to do is you need to install that into your NEOS project using Composer create project into a subdirectory. So let's run that. It's going pretty fast. And that's it. And then we need to copy the configuration of Rector into our project because we're going to start modifying that. And this is actually the full configuration. At the start, it contains the configuration which so-called sets, so that are the rule sets, should be active. So right now, there's the most important one for NEOS 9, but when we will release new versions and breaking changes there might be also rule sets for further versions coming up. Then we need to tell Rector about some information where it finds our packages. And the most important config is the one at the bottom because it tells Rector which paths is it actually allowed to modify. So that means the migration rules and the paths to change are the things you're going to modify here. And when we do that, we can actually run Rector. We can do Rector winback, so the Rector binary, and then there's a dry run command. And if we run that, it takes a bit. It analyzes our code. 127 files. Boom. And I would change 73 of them. We remove the dry run. We try it again. And that is the code migration. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I like it. So there's a lot of things we can automatically migrate, but there's just a few of things the system is not able to migrate completely automatically. And instead of migrating it in the wrong way and then letting you figure out the problems, we actually tried it the other way around. We left hints in your code to find out places you have to look into manually. And these are starting all with this to-do 9.0 migration you are seeing here. And then you'll directly see in line 14, you may need to rewrite variable.identifier to variable.aggregateID. And it also says we did not auto-apply this migration because we cannot be sure whether the variable is a node. And if this is actually in a Fusion file in the project, and if we look at this Fusion file, the error actually appears in the middle where you see ID equals tab plus item identifier. So this is the errored line, or the problematic line the system is showing. And I've been highlighting the relevant context. So we are inside a Neos Fusion loop where we iterate over children of the current node, and we put these children into the variable named item. So that means when we look at this code, we know that item in this case is a node, right? So it's not nothing else. It is definitely a node object, what we see from these lines. So that means we can actually rewrite item.identifier to item.aggregateID pretty easily. And Rector is extremely good with PHP, but as we also have Fusion code, we also added Fusion support. And some of these cases are not fully automatic, but it's working really well. Because our Rector rules are open source and they live at GitHub.com Neos Rector, this is open for contributions from everybody. So that means if you have an issue where you say, okay, this is my old code, and actually I would expect this new code to be produced, please just open an issue there where you put in these 2 code snippets. And what we can then do easily from that is create a test case where we put the old code, the new code in, and this way we can very easily develop the further rules inside Rector. And I think we already have more than 80 rules rewriting code from the older version to the new Neos 9 version. And I'm really happy with the current state already, but I'm of course sure that there might be still edge cases missing, and we really want, if we can improve that together, we can really make the upgrading experience of the code a breeze. So I think that is really nice. So that went quite well. We'll update the project. We have updated the project code. So what is still missing? It is missing the data. And this is a step which is not usually needed in the past. They're usually just the doctrine migrations, and that was pretty much it. But because we changed the underlying data structure, you also have to do something with the data, which I'm going to show now. So let's open up the console. Let's just run a doctrine migrate just to be sure we have everything. Now you have to run content repository.setup. This is important because it creates some tables. Now we export the old content from the node data table into the file system and also some assets. And we see that somebody has to change some Sandstorm package there because there's a problem in the node type schema. And then we can run site import all with this path. And what it does now has created a live workspace. It creates the site, it imports the events and the assets, and then so we replay all subscriptions. So that means we replay all the system to the state, which really works. So should we try it out now on the website if we open it up? Anybody interested? Let's try. So actually we have a website. Whoa, that is Neos 9. That is pretty nice. We can browse it. So the website is working. Let's test the backend. Let's log in. It's also working. Actually, loading the backend has become pretty fast. That's really nice. This was because we could get rid of the doctrine ORM for the content repository, and we all do handwritten SQL queries. Right, so that looks pretty good, I would say. Okay. So that means we have a local content status. We have the copy of our Neos 8.3 website, and it was not that hard. I think it cost us like 15 minutes now in the presentation. So we have updated our data as well. One thing to remember for the content migration, so we have first-class support for one language. So that means the zero-dimension case. We have first-class support for multiple languages, so that means you usually have one dimension called language and then many values like German, English, French, whatever. So that is like the case for 90% of all Neos instances. And then we have multiple languages with fallbacks, so that means if there's no content available in Swiss German, then please use the German version. And then we have multiple languages and markets, and the box is not big enough. Actually, it says potentially with fallbacks. These cases actually work, but there are still some edge cases we are aware of. So these are cases we are still improving. And if you had any problems with the content migrations in these really, really, really advanced scenarios, please also let us know. So that is something we are continuously improving as we see issues. All right. So what is our status now? We have a website running on Neos 9 with our code updated, with the packages updated, and with our data imported, and we can actually try it out. So that is really good. I wouldn't put that online right now. I would actually like to check out the details. This is what we usually do at every Neos update, that we at least do some kind of comparison. And of course, because Neos 9 is such a big change, it makes sense to have to really emphasize this comparison. And we as a team made some good experiences with a tool called Backstop.js. Does anybody know that? Oh, a few, cool. So what this is actually a screenshot comparison to a visual diff tool. You take two pages, and the thing runs a headless browser, does screenshots, and then differentiates the screenshots, and you see what actually has changed. And they have this really nice subtitle saying catching CSS curveballs, which I really like. So how does this work? You have to create some Backstop.js config where you tell the system which original URL and which new URL you have to compare. So this is now already at a staging system, but of course you could also compare the live website with your local installation we have just created. By the way, you could generate that from the sitemap XML. That's what we just did with some throwaway scripts. When you then run Backstop and you let it run, make all the screenshots and comparisons and so on, what you get is images looking like this. And this basically says the original version and the new version differ in these pink areas. And what you see here is that the live version has a new blog post which is not existing in my local version. So that means in this case, some editor has changed the live website while we were doing our migration. So that is not a problem, that is all fine, right? But there are also cases which look like this. So that means we have a person detailed page on a Neos conference website, and there's apparently some completely different rendering in the bottom. So that means in the old version there was a section about more talks, and in the new version there's some completely different element, and that's actually, if you look at the page, it's the one afterwards. So that means this more talks section is not rendering at all in the new content repository, and that is a to-do which we have to fix then manually. But it's really, really helpful to have this to-do list, because it makes it possible and very plannable to that we can go through all the website. And this way, I can go through my website, and I'm sure that my content really looks the same before and after the update. So that's pretty much how you do it. So that is how you upgrade a website to Neos 9.
This is all cool and nice, and for the showcase it works with docs.neos.io, obviously. I want to see this in a real project. What's the real experience like? I'm pretty sure we have a website. Can I migrate that to Neos 9?
Try it out, sure.
I will try it out, okay. So, what did he tell me? I have to go into my Composer file, update that, update all the dependencies to the latest versions.
You're a pretty fast typer, actually.
Pretty good. Composer update. Oh, I'm so excited. And Oh man, what's happening?
Well, who had this error before? Who did not have this error before? Let's try it the other way around. Okay, right. So what we've seen here is that there's a problem with the dependencies. They don't resolve to an installable set, right? So that means some packages are not compatible with Neos 9 now. And if we look at the error messages and read them in detail, it's these ones. And actually, there are also 2 sensor packages. So we are we also have to do our homework there. So this is the list of problematic packages right now we are having on our website. So we need to make them, we need to progress there. And there's 4 steps we have to do to fix that problem. And it's the same 4 steps you have been using in Neos 8 and so on. So first thing is we have to remove all the packages which are not Neos 9 compatible so that we have a successful Composer installation again and we can upgrade everything which works, right? This is the first step we need to do. And then we have to take care of every package individually, right? Every package which is missing, which we removed, we still have to take care of. So what we have to do is fork one incompatible package, declare it as Neos 9 compatible and install it. I'll show that in a bit how this works. Then we'll do the migrations, and we also have Rector available for that. And then we have to send a pull request. So let's try that out with one example of a package. So first, we have already removed all the packages now, and we have a running installation. We didn't show that now because I'm sure you all know how this works. And then we'll take one package which is incompatible, which is of the great Sebastian Helzle, which we want to try out. And who has forked a package before? Okay, awesome. So what you do there is you actually create your own local copy which you can freely modify. And it's pretty simple. You go to github.com, you press this fork button, and you can just keep it all at the defaults, press create fork. And then we have our own local copy to mess with. And the first thing we need to do is we have to change the Composer JSON, and I usually do that right online on github.com, and we have to declare the package compatible with Neos 9 so that we can install it. And actually, I'm doing that without even knowing if it is compatible with Neos 9, right? Because I didn't change any code yet. But it's important so that I can get it installed with all its dependencies and so on in my local copy. So that is what I'm usually doing. Okay, so we have my own local copy of the node type analyzer now. And now we need to install that locally. And what we have to tell Composer in our root Composer JSON is the special repository to be used, which should be used. The name doesn't matter; it's just the type and the URL. And this way, I can install the node types analyzer in the dev main branch. And this will install my forked version and not the original one, because we've pointed Composer to our repository, which we just created. So when I then run Composer install, Composer update, sorry. Oh yeah, that's an important thing with prefer source. That is important because it downloads the Git history. If you omit that, if you just run Composer update, you just get the code, but without the history and all the Git setup. But if you run it with prefer source, you get a version which you can directly modify and commit and push and everything to. So that is important just for the workflow, because otherwise you could create your local changes, but you don't get it back online. So prefer source is really important. All right, so what we did now is we forked our package, we declared it as compatible, and we installed it. Next step, we have to run Rector, because we have this cool migration tool, which of course also works at arbitrary packages people have created. So we open up rector.php, the config, and we don't want it working on the distribution packages anymore, but we wanted to remove it, work it on the node types analyzer. All right, let's try that and execute Rector. And for some reason, I don't really understand yet, this actually took a minute running that, so I've sped it up a bit. But it's still way faster than me doing and finding all the things locally, so it's still a really, really good tool. So, let's see. La-di-da-da. Okay, so Rector did some modifications and changed 8 files. And that is really cool, I think, that Rector is able to modify your code automatically, what we've seen. Okay, next step is actually push this stuff back online, because now we have our local modified copy. We have to, we can check the diff, we can try out the package, we can see if everything works as expected. And now we can add the code, create a new commit for Neos 9 compatibility. And if we see what remote side Git is connected to, we see that actually it is connected to my local version of the node types analyzer, which we just forked. So that is what is important. So that means I am allowed to push there as well, because I don't have write access to Sebastian's package directly. So we push that to GitHub, and that is really nice and working. And last step, which is also really important so that everybody can profit from that. So I personally can now use my fork, right? I'm done. I have a working version of my package now. I can continue with my update. I think that is also a good thing. I don't need to wait for Sebastian to merge the pull requests, because I can start updating the next package and the next one, and get my project done to Neos 9 without any external dependencies. I do not need to wait until the maintainer approves the change. But of course, it extremely makes a lot of sense that I send this code back to Sebastian, so I can send a pull request to the original maintainer. Who has done a pull request before? Okay, cool. For all the others, I'll just show how this works. We'll go to the GitHub user interface again. I'm in my local version again of the package. And then I can press contribute up there. And I want to create a pull request. I have to add some title. And some description would be nice, of course, which I'm omitting yet now because I'm a slow typer. And that's it. So this way, I've sent the changes back to review to Sebastian, and also to everybody else in the community who is trying to figure out if there's a compatible version of the package for Neos 9, because that is the place to look at. All right. So we've sent a pull request, and this is actually what we now need to do for every individual package we are missing. And this is how we get to a working version of the Sandstorm website, which you wanted to know.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. So this is the call to action for all of you. To get to the point where all of you, next time we meet at Neos conference next year, say, you're all running Neos 9 projects now, we have to update our packages. And as Sebastian just showed, updating our packages starts a virtuous circle. The more packages we make compatible, the more Rector rules we create, the more edge cases we find and improve, the easier the upgrade of our next project becomes. So, let's update our packages, send those pull requests, and harness the power of this open source community. And if you plan to stay for the contribution day on Saturday, that is the perfect opportunity to take your first steps and start making your packages Neos 9 compatible, so that we can all start upgrading our Neos projects to Neos 9. Thank you very much for your attention. And we're looking forward to a lot of pull requests to make packages Neos 9 compatible.
Yep. And to a great Neos conference, of course.
Well, thank you very much, Toby and Sebastian. Well,
All right.
I got a bit thrown back hearing this talk because I remember my little girl, she might be watching the live stream.
Hi.
Hi. And she just recently turned 10. And I remember when my wife was pregnant, we went to Lübeck visiting Carsten and Robert. And Robert was telling me about event sourcing and everything. And it's 10 years from now, roundabout. And, well, do you remember when you were like 5 years old, dreaming of how it would be when you would turn 10? What you could do when you were 10? And that's like a similar feeling. And then she turned 10. And then she was able to do all these things like staying awake until 10 in the evening or something like that. And did you realize it is now here? We turn 10. It's really here and we can use it, NEOS 9. So please give a huge shout out to all those who made this possible. We have it now available. We don't have to dream about it anymore.
That was a lot of talk and a lot of listening and a lot of sitting. I'm sure you could take a quick break and a coffee maybe. Does that sound any good? We'll have a 15-minute coffee break and then we come back with Bernhard presenting their NEOS 9 project and here on the center stage and Carsten on the studio stage. We're looking forward to all of it. I think we disabled voting for these first two talks, so don't vote now. But do make sure you install the damn app. All right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy a break.